Welcome to De-Stress 302. I'm Alena with the Cause Production crew, and we are here with...
I'm Marie Wenzel. I am the CEO for NAMI Delaware.
All right. What was your motivation to become a social worker?
Wow, Alena, that's a good question. I think that I grew up with a very complex family structure. I have 9 siblings, many of whom are adopted out of the foster care system. And so I was able to see kind of firsthand as I was growing up the complexities and challenges of foster care, and then of youth who are losing access to their biological families, what it means to be in a family that's not, of your origin, different challenges that come up and emerge over time with behavioral health and mental health challenges, and a lot of identity challenges as well that arise in that kind of space. And so I grew up in that environment, and I have many siblings who experience pretty significant mental health issues. And I saw how the systems around them kind of exacerbated those at times and were not the most helpful. And I think that really propelled me into a career in social work where I could help individuals, but also impact system change.
Yeah. Do you have any stories you would like to share of how you were able to inspire someone at your work?
Wow. I hope that I'm inspirational every day. I think that I create a work environment and working in behavioral health industry where everyone who either works with or for us and or who engages with our services feels safe. I think that creating a space of safety is critical, so that folks can engage with us in a way that is authentic to themselves, where they can kind of lay down the armor. I'm trying to think of a specific story. A lot of times right now we're dealing with residents who are experiencing behavioral health crises, and they're living independently in the community. Oftentimes they don't have access to communal supports or family members or things that a lot of us kind of take for granted. And so it's really building community around them to inspire them maybe to seek help if that's what they're looking for, that's what they need. Or to find other places in the community to engage with each other and build their own kind of social support and social community to wrap around them. I think that we're working with young people all the time and trying to kind of reduce stigma and remind folks that kind of accessing mental health treatment and services and support is normal and acceptable and okay. I hopefully we're working with a team of folks who that's kind of at the core of their why and why they're showing up every day.
Can you discuss with us the importance of community and its impact on mental health? Yeah.
So from my experience, community is where recovery happens, and recovery from substance use disorders and from mental health challenges happens in relationships with other people. And so that can be relationships with a therapist, that could be relationships with a school counselor, teachers, parents and caregivers. It can be relationships with siblings, friends. But having a strong social community is a really strong indicator for finding recovery in both mental health and substance use challenges. I think that a lot of times folks who experience serious mental health issues often are kind of left out of community or pushed to the side or ignored or overlooked. And so being really intentional about engaging those people in particular is so valuable because oftentimes they're the ones who have some of the most creative ideas for how we can solve problems and how we can work together. I think, building community, it sounds like a big concept, but really it's one smile, right? It's one good morning. It's somebody holding the door for you when you're walking into the Wawa. It's, it's sometimes the smallest gestures help to build the strongest communities.
Yeah. What's something you wish more people understood about the nature of mental health?
I wish more people understood how common mental health challenges are. It's very easy for us as a society to want to distance ourselves from mental health issues. The brain is one of the most complex organs that we have, and it's the one we know the least about. And so I think because it's kind of unexplored, or it's not unexplored, but just underexplored in relationship to other parts of the body, that it's often the one that's kind of separated from physical health. And really, the brain is an organ, just like your heart or your liver or any other part of your body. And if it's not functioning in the way that optimizes your life, then there's no kind of shame in kind of working on that area, just like you would another part of your body. But we, tend to stigmatize, challenges that happen in our brain in ways that we don't with other physical health problems. And so really it's recognizing how common these challenges are. In Delaware, for example, 1 in 5 individuals is living with serious mental health challenges. And so, there's several 100,000 young people every year who are encountering these challenges as well. And so if it's not you personally, it's someone that you know, it's someone that you care about. And often they're managing it alone in the shadows, kind of in a kind of veil of shame. And it's really reducing the stigma and normalizing experiences so that people feel comfortable engaging with people who they feel safe with in their communities around kind of addressing their challenges so that they're not going through those things alone.
How would you say, how does stigma affect people's views of mental health? And maybe what would you say on that point?
Sure. I think that stigma is led by stereotypes. And there's always some truth rooted in a stereotype, right? And so, but then I think it's kind of blown out of proportion. So I think a lot of times there's stigma around people with mental health challenges as being violent or having, an inability to kind of manage their own behaviors, which is just, it's not true. And often folks with serious and persistent mental health issues are the victims and not the aggressors in most cases. But these stereotypes that are rooted in the stigma or the stereotypes kind of perpetuate the stigma. And then it makes it so that if I'm experiencing something that's really challenging, I'm more likely to hide from that and hide that from people who care about me because I don't want them to view me as weak or less than. And so I think that, stigma gets in the way of people accessing help sooner. I think folks a lot of times experience challenges for years before getting the help that they need and deserve. And stigma plays a big role in that.
Mm-hmm. What are the best ways to engage youth in this conversation?
I think holding safe spaces where we can just normalize experiences. I think that listening and especially as adults, creating space where young people can just kind of share their experiences as honestly and openly as they possibly, as we can create. I think that listening to young people about what they need and putting them in the driver's seat, they're the experts of their lives. And I think a lot of times youth are looked at as not knowing better or not knowing as much as the adults around them know. And really, they're the ones who are living and walking in their skin and in their shoes every day, and the ones who are encountering the challenges, right? We see, a lot of bullying and all sorts of things happening in schools. And I think it's really just creating safe spaces for young people to share their experiences and to build community around them, because a lot of times youth specifically feel isolated and that they're the only one going through something. And in real life, if we're honest, right, everyone's probably going through that or has gone through something very similar. So I think adults in particular need to listen to young people and not act like we know everything. But also kind of making mental health fun, and right, like Mindful Mondays is a good way to do that, mm-hmm. and having some more conversations to just normalize experiences and let young people know that they're not alone. What they're experiencing is not necessarily unique, and that there's a lot of support and a lot of people who care about them.
What are some resources you think our listeners should know about?
So definitely the 988 suicide prevention and crisis hotline is definitely one of the biggest resources that I like to share with everyone. 988 is an available resource that if you're calling, you're getting linked to a live mental health professional on the other end of that phone. And I think that that's incredibly valuable, especially in a time right now where a lot of us, it's really easy for us to turn to the internet for help. And so we might be, turning to, people we don't know on Instagram or on socials, on TikTok, getting information from TikTok University, which can be dangerous at times. I think, there's a trend in folks going to AI, and especially like young people, and that can be dangerous. AI doesn't have true empathy the way humans do. And at times they can be reinforcing negative beliefs about yourself or things that are just not helpful. And so having a live body on the other end of a phone call is just incredibly valuable. So 988 for immediate crisis. NAMI Delaware is always an available resource. And so we're working with people who have lived experience with serious and persistent mental health issues. We're also working with the families and caregivers of those people because the behavioral health systems can be really difficult to navigate. And so we want to make sure that people have all of the information that they need in order to kind of navigate those systems that are external, but also have support. So NAMI Delaware offers support groups that are peer-led, so either by individuals or family members, depending on the style of support group. And again, just kind of building community that, there are folks who are struggling with similar challenges in your own community, and how can you build relationships to support each other. I think the Delaware Substance Abuse and Mental Health Agency has a pretty good website with a number of resources that are available to people in the community. And then, your local community centers and, YMCAs and churches, I think, are all really good places for building that sense of community and building relationships with people who have similar beliefs and similar interests as you.
As we know, one of the barriers for calling 988 and getting help is the intimidation of not knowing what the process is of calling that number. So what we're going to do is we're going to call 988 right now and do a sort of a practice trial run of what that process looks like.
Let's do it.
You've reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Para español, marque el número 2. If you are a veteran or service member or are calling about one, press 1. To connect to support for LGBTQI+ youth and young adults, press 3. Otherwise, to talk with a counselor, stay on the line or press 0. To improve 988, your call may be monitored and recorded. We are checking for a counselor who is available to talk. You'll hear music while we do this, and we'll give you an update in 30 seconds. You are not alone. We care and want to support you. Someone will be with you soon.
"988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline." This is Ann speaking. I'm here to support you.
Hi, Ann. My name is Marie Wenzel. I am an employee of NAMI Delaware, and I was just calling because we're working on a podcast right now, and a lot of folks are not calling 988 because they're not sure what happens when they do. And so we were wondering if you could kind of walk us through what happens I'm calling right now to see what happens when we call 988.
Excellent. No problem. Is it just you on the line, or is there someone else listening?
Yeah, so you are actually being recorded right now on a podcast.
Okay.
It's not live. It'll be edited, but we wanted to make sure.
Okay. So basically, if an individual calls 988, it's actually the best place to call when you're in the duress, if you're in distress, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you are experiencing a crisis for yourself or another individual. It's the best line to call because we're in a position where we can assess the situation, identify the level of risk and danger. We are tasked with focusing on de-escalating that risk if possible, and we can dispatch police, we can dispatch a care team, which the care team consists of a mental health support professional. It also consists of a peer support professional under the direction of a master's level clinician. So that's the care team that can come out to the individual's home or wherever they are. And we can dispatch that if the criteria is appropriate. Now, if the criteria is not appropriate, say the levels based on our assessment are higher, then based on, and usually 90% of 988 calls do not require police involvement. So I want to stress that, because a lot of people think if I call 988, the police will show up at my location, but that's just not the case. Most of the time, people are calling because they're experiencing some distress and they need someone to talk to. They may not have anyone that they can talk to that they feel safe to talk to. So we are a safe space. We are confidential. Everything that is shared is in confidence. The only thing that we are under as a mandate is we have to report child abuse if it hasn't already been reported. And we have, so, New Jersey is a mandated report state. So certain things, elder child abuse, have to be reported. However, for the most part, a person can call and remain 100% anonymous. You can remain anonymous. You can give a fake name. All of that is okay. We just want more people to utilize the line because of the fact that it is a great service. We do have the ability, and often we connect people to follow-up services, whether that is with a mental health professional, a therapist, an intensive outpatient program that might be virtual and suit an individual. So we have it, in-depth conversations with people, or we can have quick conversations. It's whatever the individual needs at that moment. We are focused on finding out what those needs are, de-escalating if necessary, and then passing off to the next entity that can continue that support.
Ms. Ann, that was a very thorough overview. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Your podcast, what's the name of your podcast?
De-Stress 302.
De-Stress 302, capital DE-stress 302.
Nice. I love it. Really am glad that you reached out, because this is a really highly valuable service and it is underutilized. We're getting a lot of calls and it keeps growing, but it needs to continue to grow because we have a huge population with a variety. I'll give you some different, sometimes it's surprising individuals that call. So sometimes, we get elderly people that feel alone, that might be in a nursing home or live alone, right? We also get people like a police officer might call feeling like he wants to debrief or decompress over a rough day. Or you might have a person that is struggling with substance use, or they have a family member struggling. We get all kinds of calls. We get calls from young people, people that are in school, in gym class, and feel pressure. We get calls, from anybody and everybody. And everybody's treated with respect and listened to. So that's the great thing, I would say. Call.
Absolutely. That's our goal, is to make sure that people are fully aware of the resource and that they're not intimidated to make that call and find community on the other end of that line.
Exactly. And it's nationwide, so it doesn't matter, the calls are routed based on the location of the caller. However, we can always, if a call gets to me and their caller is in Texas because they have a New Jersey phone number, I can just get 988 from Texas right on the line.
Oh, great.
Make the connection.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Well, Ms. Ann, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You're saving lives every day.
Thank you. Thank you for getting the word out. Thank you for helping me get the word out.
Absolutely. You have a good day.
You too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I would say that was incredibly helpful to sort of get a picture, at least for me, of what that looks like and who's on the line and how much they care and put the effort into really just sort of showing that support from the other end.
Absolutely. I think it just also highlights that, at times as much as we'd like to think that the people closest to us are the ones we can talk to, a lot of times there are things that come up in our lives where we just don't want to share things that are happening. But it doesn't mean that we don't need to share that somewhere. And so somebody like Miss Ann on the other end of that line might be that space, because it gives that anonymity, right? I can protect kind of who I am in that space. I want to highlight too what she had mentioned, something about the geolocation, and so that is something that we're pushing. So for any advocacy work that could be done, is we're really looking to have 911 parity. So right now, what means if you call you call 988 and you're routed to a call center based on your area code of your phone number. So if you have a Philadelphia area code but you live in Delaware, you're routed to a Philadelphia call center. And so what she's saying is that she can quickly route you to a call center in the state that you're in. But from an advocacy perspective, what we're looking for is for the federal government to make into law that there's geo-routing, and so that you're routed to a call center based on where you physically are. And it wouldn't give the exact location of where you are, but just a general region. So if you're in Wilmington, right, you'd be routed to the closest call center in Newcastle County. And so I think that's also something just to be aware of, that right now we don't have 911 parity, and that we're pushing federally for legislators to make that into code and make that into law.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be really helpful, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people in the community that you're currently physically in are the ones who are responding to your needs. So that's just something to note. But yeah, call 988 and maybe you'll get to talk to Miss Ann.
Do you have any closing advice for listeners today?
Closing advice, I would say use your voice, speak up. No one can know if you're going through what you're going through if you don't share. And if you can't share with the people who are closest to you, then I would encourage you to reach out to find other supports, whether that's, again, finding a mental health counselor or accessing someone through your school. Again, NAMI Delaware is always available. But I think using your voice and coming out of the shadows, the more people talk about what they're experiencing, the more we all understand that this is more of a collective experience than we would like to think. And that if you can speak up, and you'll find community, and you'll find support, and you'll find people that want you here and value you and have worth. And we want everyone to be as well as possible to live an optimal life, and that's available to everyone if we're able to build community and support one another.
All right, that's all the questions I have today. It was very insightful, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. De-Stress 302 is a Cause of the World production. This program was produced by members of the Cause production crew. Crew includes Milan Wood, Alana Hernandez. Associate producers are Adam Hubert and Alena Duggan. Produced by Matt Kelly. Our executive producers are Hayat Omar and Dennis Finicaro. This show was brought to you by the 988 Lifeline in Delaware and the Cause. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, alcohol or drug use, is in emotional distress, or just needs someone to talk to, contact 988. 988's trained, caring counselors are ready to listen. Call, text, or chat 988 for free and confidential support, 24/7, 365. You are not alone. Subscribe to De-Stress 302 today.